increase in the behavior points showed that they had control of the vocabulary and they were able to implement them into their life. So basically what we're saying is it's like the green shows that they had more control of themselves during the day. So each hour when the teacher went in to mark their points, it wasn't just during the hour that we were there. The teacher was doing it every day, you know, from 8 to 9, 9 to 10. They had an increase in points because they were more in control of their behavior. They were able to express themselves in a more positive manner. So this positive increase showed that they had more active to passive control within their of these terms.
In our activities that we did, like we said, we did a lot of vignettes and role playing and those kind of things. And a lot of times they would, you know, right when we get in, they'd talk about stories that happened to them at home or out in the community for you know, for that week before and those kind of things. So we digressed through all that. And so as the weeks grew on, it only took maybe a week or two for them to really get to comfortable with us, and then they were really open and honest with us about what was happening, you know, and they related it back to these activities every time. It was really interesting.
Okay, so some of the things that we did were, we did a lot of oral activities with the students. We did a lot of visual, and we did do some writing activities with these students. One of the things that I tried to utilize a lot when we did this was Kagan strategies. If you have not researched Kagan strategies, I encourage you to look at Kagan strategies. So I'll explain, like one day I came in with a ball and I had all the terms kind of, yes?
Did you spell Kagan?
Uh-huh. K-A-G-A-N.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. So one day I came in, here's one of the strategies. We did what was called quiz, trade, okay? So the students had learned the words 1 week. So the next week we came in and I had the words on cards, and each of them had a card. So we played their hip hop music, and they would wander around the room, and when the music stopped, they had to stop in front of whoever their partner was. And they had a card, and they had to explain what their card, their word on their card meant to their partner. Now, the classroom teacher and Dr. Lusk and I would also move around with them. This allowed us to interact with them. So they had to explain, what does the word mean to you, and give us an example in your home life, your community, or your school life. So for instance, if we were studying responsibility, we had all different words that meant responsibility so that they could realize that they could express it more than just saying responsibility. They could say that it was my obligation, my duty to do something, it's my job to do something. So they could explain responsibility in different terms. And so as we did this, I would talk to Mandy about my word, I explained it to her, then she would explain her word to me, and then we would trade cards. So now I was responsible for the next word. So I didn't have my same word the whole time. The music would start again, we would move around the room, you had to pick a different partner, you partnered up, whatever the next card was that you had, then you had to explain and give an example of it. And then Mandy would do the same, or whoever your next partner was, and then we would trade cards. So that allowed them to work through every one of those terms that we had been working on with responsibility. The next week we played what was called tossed terms, and I had all the words kind of taped to different places on the ball, and we would toss the ball to each other because they like to do things physical. So we would toss the ball, and then whatever word was in front of them, then they had to talk about that word and explain it. So they were having fun, they had no clue that they were learning.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
one of the things just kind of dawned on me that we forgot to mention is one of the things that they were really earning for, which, you know, sounds funny for us, but is that at one point, one of the activity lessons that we were going through, I made a comment that I'd never flown a kite. And the whole class was like, oh my gosh, Mandy, Miss Mandy, or whatever, you've never flown a kite, this is crazy. Oh, can we earn to fly a kite at the very end if we all, you know, show appropriate behaviors? And of course some of them use the lingos that we've been using, you know. And so that's what we earned. So you saw one of the pictures as one of the students flying the kite. So that was one of the things they're earning. So throughout all these activities, they were really incorporating that ultimate goal that they were talking about. Because during one of the activities, the female student came up to me and said, responsibility, it's my responsibility to help you learn how to fly a kite. You know, and that's how she put it. And so it was just kind of funny how they threaded that throughout the 8 weeks. So
So, just for a moment, what I thought we could do is just talk a little bit about oral, visual, and written performance activities. So many times we do so many things paper pencil with our students. And one of the things that I try to teach to my pre-service teachers is that as we integrate literacy into social studies, and as we integrate literacy into science, or whatever is the content area that we have to teach, it doesn't have to be a paper pencil activity. It can be an oral activity using Kagan strategies. It can be a visual activity to where they create some type of a visual poster or whatever it is. And to try, if you do written ones, to get away from like the essay type writing, or to use written strategies like graphic organizers, note-taking strategies, insert note-taking, little post-it notes. So is there any feedback from anybody in the audience that would like to share some of their oral activities they've been doing with their students, visual, written? You've been nodding your head.
I was agreeing. I'm trying to think of, I forget what I used to call it when I was in the classroom, but we did a lot of, especially with new vocabulary for all kinds of contents, like the example, non-example, picture, and
The word map.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. So and I think that just to cement what it was helped a lot.
Uh-huh.
And we did some word splashes where we had like a splash our words, and we had to pick ones we could do or show or draw.
Yeah, I created word splashes one week with all the words, it was like Wordle is what I used.
Yes.
And they had to go around to each of the tables and they had sticky notes and they had each of the words written on it. And they had to look at that word splash and they had to determine, it was a visual, and they had to determine what is this word that's being described here. So there's lots of ways that you can do it beyond just writing down the definitions.
I think you could, I'm not doing it, I'm gonna say that, but it just has come to me, that with all of the technology, you could also flash it, when
Yes.
kids are writing, depending on what your classroom's like. Or if
Absolutely.
everybody has an iPad, you could really be doing some things.
Yeah, we integrate the technology piece.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Especially the clickers and all those
Mhm.
things.
Yes,
I don't know
ma'am.
if anybody else has used it, but a magic board, you can buy a piece of fabric and then spray it with the adhesive spray, and then you can cut out the vocab word with examples of what it can mean, and then the kids go in groups and just stick it
Oh, neat.
That's
on their
great.
stations, so.
Great.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, and we loved the thought of using technology, but these kids were so antsy, so we were trying to find things that got them up and moving around the room.
Well,
and
plus
learning about
it was such a rural school district that we didn't have the accessibility to the smartboard and Prometheans. It was very, very rural.
It was an eye-opening experience.
They had
for us.
little tiny.
You guys, can I ask you another question?
Yeah.
You put up the 4 words, and, so let's take responsibility. But in the 8 weeks, you used lots of synonyms for responsibility? So it was more than the 4 words. You're really building, okay, that's.
We really built their knowledge so they could see that they didn't just have to use the word responsibility, that they could describe it in different ways, they could use different words that would mean the same thing.
And did you give those other words to the kids?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
through our different activities we did, yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
But
definitely.
we would always try to limit it to maybe 5 or 6 other terms, because each one of them would connect to a different word, depending on their own personal experiences. If we just used responsibility, not all of them were connecting to that, or respect. So by using different words, and we talked to them about how it still means respect, or it still means responsibility, whichever one, each one of them could connect different as we talked about them. For instance, Jay, he lived with his grandparents, and also, most of the time, his mother was wheelchair bound, his grandma was wheelchair bound too. So he really connected to the word obligation for responsibility, because he felt like it was his obligation to take care of things at home, to do things. So each one of them
You put
connected
in
to-
obligation, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So it's really those 4 words and then another 20.
Yeah, yes,
Gotcha.
Yes,
So I
absolutely,
I got you.
absolutely.
And
That was our focus, is those 4 areas, yes.
And all the words, what we really wanted to help them with is to state the words positively based from the PBIS system. So that's where we wanted to go with that, instead of, and thinking of, like, for instance, obligation, is that maybe that's not such a bad thing, and we tried to, do the vignettes and the role play and activities for that, so.
Okay, so because I'm into this idea, I really liking
Hey,
this.
we'll give you everything we
Okay,
have.
but so, and I'm in a a detention center. So, and our
Yes,
kids are
perfect.
just like this. This is
Yeah.
fuck you, this is
Yeah,
stupid.
exactly.
The whole thing, all the time, and they cannot express one single thought.
Right, absolutely.
But to get those themes, going down, is that up to me to find those words, or does, what'd you say, Beck? Does Beck help me in those tier, for that academic language? So if I decide, or
You
my
decide.
team
Yeah,
decides?
definitely,
Okay,
yeah.
You decide.
okay.
Beck just tells you how to figure out if a word is tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3. For these particular students, these were tier 2 words for them because it kind of went across all their content areas that were important to them. They could have cared less what Native Americans were doing, or they could have cared less what was
Exactly.
going on in
Yeah.
science. So to them, this was specific to their content. That's why we chose those as our tier 2 words.